Hi there. I want to talk about fear and share something with you that I hope will be really helpful. It was super helpful today as we discussed it in the membership. So, literally, just an hour ago, we finished our last meeting of the month of April. And we kind of took an inventory. The membership actually started a year ago. So it was absolutely so cool to see. We actually had notes from our first meeting and to see where all the people were 11 months later. Very cool. So we pulled up a blank sheet of paper and said, okay, now what do we want? And everybody went through and came up with some really cool things. Then one of the members said, yeah, and there's something missing. And I don't remember what else she said, but it occurred to me that maybe she was alluding to, or maybe she wasn't. But what occurred to me was, what's holding us back? What is actually holding us back? And so we listed a few things. And one of the things that came up was fear. And fear in many forms: fear of getting it wrong, fear of disappointing someone, fear of looking like a failure if we try something. And then I asked the question, what actually is fear? So the beautiful members came up with, a very spot on answer. Fear is made of thought. Unless we were referring to clear and present danger, EI, somebody's outside my door right now with a gun. Nope, that knocking turns out to be the Amazon delivery person. Fear is using our creative, powerful brain to imagine a future that is something we don't want to feel. That was the other thing. Somebody said, well, fear is about worrying that if something happens, I'm going to feel bad. So both of those things are huge. Fear is coming from thought. Unless it's clear and present danger. If it's not happening right now, then fear is our creative mind imagining a future. And in that future, really, the worst thing that can happen is a feeling that we don't want to feel. So I love that. So then I said, well, let's go a little bit deeper. Like, really, really, what is this feeling that we don't want to feel that we're calling fear or whatever? So we decided to play with fear. And here's what I'm trying to get at. There's a thought arises. Who knows from where? We look at the content of the thought, and there's a feeling immediately associated with the thinking. So I'm afraid. Let's just use that one. Then there is a corresponding, with this feeling, there's a corresponding emotion, energy in motion happening in the body. So that's what we started to explore. And when I said to the membership, what actually is fear? Everybody went back up into their head to come up with a best attempt at a conceptual description of fear. And I was like, here's where I really wanted to take us. Let's go to the body. So what is, when there's something happening in your experience that you call fear, actually what in this very present moment, and again, it could be coming from, you're projecting out to the future, but what are you feeling right now? go to the body, check in. And I was pretty amazed. Pretty amazed because of the maturity, emotional maturity of the people in the group and how long they'd been with me, that everyone seemed to have a pretty difficult time describing pure sensation in the body. And believe me, I used to as well. Last week I was coaching a client who was dealing with health anxiety that she felt was pretty close to escalating to panic. And she also related a similar experience with flying. And I said, oh, yeah. I used to describe, I had concern that escalated to worry, that escalated to fear, and escalated to panic attacks. What I described as panic attack, which turns out to be something entirely different happening in my body than somebody else who called it a panic attack. But I said to the client way back then, I would say, oh my gosh, I just wanted to jump out of my skin. And she said, oh my, yeah, that's it. I want to jump out the airplane. I want to get away from this feeling. So I said, well, can you describe to me what it feels like when that's happening? And she's like, oh, it's awful. It's the worst feeling ever. It's, some people will say, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Well, okay. What does it feel like to be having a heart attack? Because again, that's conceptual. I don't know what a heart attack feels like for you or even for myself. I mean, I can only imagine. What we can know in our here now, right in this moment, direct experience of actually reality, like what really is happening. The only thing that we have in our tool chest is, we do have the awareness that the thought is happening. So that's good to know. But the answers, right, are not there. We have touch, sight, sound, smell, vision. We have this knowing, this consciousness, this aliveness, this like we can sense that what's happening in the body. The energy moving is really what I call an emotion, energy in motion. We have the ability to know that there isn't aliveness and a life force animating this body-mind. And so if we can describe fear as it appears to us in the body, one, it takes us away from the thinking that is scaring us, that we're using to scare ourselves, because we can't think of the thinking and focus on the body at the same time. Energy in motion, emotions move and change. They're fluid, they flow. So if you give attention, so I described, oftentimes when I am feeling fearful, imagine that I'm going to go live. Not so much anymore, like YouTube Live or Facebook Live. Let's say I'm going to go out on stage in front of, several hundred people. And I feel afraid. It might feel like butterflies in my stomach. Probably more like even like almost a little bit of queasiness. Not like I'm going to barf or throw up. I might feel, like kind of a buzzing sensation in my ears maybe. I don't get sweaty, but some people do. Clammy hands. I do have like just sort of a restlessness. Like, again, like this energy churning that isn't even localized anywhere in my body, that if I could just go out and run really fast, whole body tension. So I have that sense. Now the mind wants to label fear, and we want to go back up into the head to get more description, and that's exactly what the members did. Well, it's like this. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like there's probably some shame underneath it, and there's, and they're all up in their head telling stories. Well, that's exactly too what was happening when I initially was having panic attacks and I didn't know what they were. I never went to the body. One, we're not trained to do that. Two, I think maybe we think it's kind of scary, that it's not safe. But that's it. That's where it's at. That's where we can deeply go right into the here, now, what's happening. And then we can see that we can handle it. If your heart's racing, the body knows how to come back into balance. But what can make the heart race more is jumping back up into the head, saying like, oh my gosh, I'm anxious about this health condition coming back, as my client was, and oh my gosh, what if I have a panic attack? I don't ever want to feel the symptoms of the health condition, because it was really, really bad. And so going back up to thinking about it and worrying about it just makes it worse. And then your heart races more. So my instructions to the membership was to just play with this with something little. I mean, you can use it for what we would call a positive sensation. See what that feels like. If that's what feels safe, just to get you connected to, dropping down into the body, becoming aware of sensation in the body. And even it's not always just in the body. The emotion is there, but also sometimes, it can be helpful to just kind of check in with the senses and just what do you see and what do you hear, and but I think for this exercise, more about the body, and realize that energy and motion is going to move through. It's going to change. It may change quality and still be something that we might label as uncomfortable or undesirable. But if we don't push it away, and we realize like we really, really, we're not going to, I hate to say it, we're not going to die from it. We can handle it. And it moves and it changes. And it's safe to feel. It's the resistance to feeling that creates more uncomfortable, more feeling that we don't want. And if we just allow it and just be with it, it changes. And I think this can be really, really, really helpful, really dramatic, really life-changing. I know that when I first talked to the very first session with this client who had the health anxiety, and I suggested, she had driving anxiety also. And I said, okay, let's try to imagine, let's just do something right now. No, we were going to practice it right now. No, we'll do it with something little. And I was like, okay, we'll reconvene next week. Well, intuitively, she knew that there was something there. Like she just knew. So she played with it a little bit, with things that were, that were safe. Like, oh, I'm starting to feel like a mild headache is coming on. Let me just really drop into the body. I'm calling it headache, but what is it? What is it really? And getting away from labeling it, because labeling is conceptual, and it doesn't really tell us that much about reality, right? That it's imagination. So what we can know for sure is what do we actually sense and feel in the body. So try it out. See how that works. See how that exchange, shifts and changes your relationship to maybe some of the uncomfortable feelings, that they can soften up a little bit when you do this. And let me know what you think. Let me know what your experience is. You can send an email and or contact me on the website, or just comment here on YouTube. I'll see that as well.